Sabbath. If you've ever used we had a lesson on stress, and I'm feeling it right now. If you've ever used a computer, you know every once in a while the computer will just ask you a question. And if you answer it wrong, you're in trouble. Well, I answered it wrong. So, thank you for your help, Corey. You got me at least to this far. So, but anyway, the memory text, I'm going to be turning around a lot, so I apologize for that. The memory text for today, or the text that the text, was Isaiah 40 verse 4. I never really looked at it before this, and I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? Because this is actually what John the Baptist comes along and says later before Jesus came on the scene. And when he's talking about valleys and hills, he's not actually talking about land. And that's something that I kind of come to an understanding. And so we're going to rush through this because we are behind already. Good grief, we're really behind. So we're going to go as fast, and I tell you, I got a lot on here, so I'm going to go as fast as I can. Now this thing's going to not work for me. Okay, well, I'll just use my fingers. So, technical troubles. Okay. All right. Okay. So the title of my sermon or presentation is Hills and Valleys. And the story I want to focus on is the story where the woman comes in and washes Jesus' feet. Because I noticed some interesting things about it. First of all, and this is why it's going to be kind of lengthy, so forgive me. But have you ever been in court? And there you have, okay, and 3 times. You go to court and they call witnesses. How many witnesses do they usually call? Several. That's right. Well, in the Bible, we have 4 witnesses to the gospel. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And what's really interesting is this particular story. Some stories are not in all 4 gospels. But this story is in all 4 gospels. And I'm going to explain to you why. But to get a full vision of what is going on, I wanted to hit all 4 gospels. And so, but hang with me and I'll explain it to you. So anyway, the first one I want to look at is John. It talks about that 6 days before the Passover, he went to Bethany, and he went to the house of Lazarus, who he raised from the dead. Now we know that the person that he raised from the dead had 2 sisters, right? Mary and Martha. And it says, when he made the supper, Martha served, but Lazarus sat at the table. But notice it says he was one of the people that sat at the table. So there was a lot of people there. Okay, now if we skip over to Luke for a second, it says, now it came to pass as they went that he came to a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him to his house. So again, this is that same Martha. That certain village, did it tell us what the certain village was? The certain village was Bethany. So we know now what Luke is talking about is Bethany. He doesn't say it, but we know it. So see how important it is to kind of harmonize the Gospels. Okay, and then Luke it goes on to talk about how Mary was sitting at Jesus' feet. That's important. Where was she? She was sitting at Jesus' feet. We'll find that as we go on. And Martha was cumbered with a lot of serving, and so she asked Jesus, hey, don't you care that I'm doing all this serving? Tell my sister to help me. And what is his response? He says, no, Martha, Martha, you're always worried about all this, but Mary's picking the thing that is important, and that is being at my feet and learning. So now that actually, according to Luke, that happens earlier than what we're talking about. But it's important to see that this is a common thing. Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus, Jesus at the house in Bethany with Lazarus and his 2 sisters. We talked about that in Sabbath school, that he liked to go over there. It was kind of a place where he relaxed with this family. Now, if we go over to Matthew, it says, now when Jesus went in Bethany in a house, look, of Simon the leper. Now, he's in a different house. Now, I propose that Lazarus was at this guy's house too. Because it never says in that other one that he went to Lazarus' house. It actually, now the first one it did, but the other one. It's a little confusing, so bear with me. But anyway, so here he's at the house of Simon the leper, and there came in a woman having an alabaster box, of very precious ornament, and she poured it on his head while he was at meat. In other words, while he was eating. Okay? Now, looking at Mark real quick, and being in Bethany, see, this is all four. Notice all four already. And being in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, he sat at meat. In other words, he sat eating. And there came a woman having an alabaster box of ointment. So again, here comes this woman with the ointment. Okay? Now, listen. Now we're going to go back over to Luke for a second. And one of the Pharisees desired that he would eat with him, and he went into the Pharisee's house. Who's the Pharisee? And he sat down to meat, in other words to eat, and behold, a woman in the city, in Bethany, see, she came in, which was a sinner. She knew that Jesus was set to meat, and she came to the Pharisee's house, and what'd she have? The alabaster box with the ointment. So again, we have, this is the same woman, right? Same instant. Okay. And then Luke goes on, and she stood at his feet behind him, weeping. In other words, remember, in that day and time, they didn't sit in chairs. They reclined. And so she came up behind him while he was reclined and started to wash his feet. She washed his feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair and kissed his feet and anointed them with ointment. So again, same situation. And he took, now this is going to go over to John for a second. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped the feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. Now, I was looking at Mrs. White, one of her statements. She said that Mary didn't do this so everybody would see it. She did it quietly behind him. She went to anoint his feet. But the smell got everybody looking around, and that's when they noticed what she was doing. This is just a little side note, kind of interesting way to see it. And then we're going to flash over to Luke. Now the Pharisee which had bidden him saw it. He saw this woman, okay? And he spake within himself, saying, this man, if he were a prophet, would know who and what manner of woman this is that touches him, for she is a sinner. And Jesus answered and said unto him, what? Simon. Remember, the other gospel said Simon the leper's house. This is the Pharisee, but we know that Pharisee is Simon, the leper. Now, he wasn't a leper anymore, he was healed. Christ healed him of his leprosy. But anyway, Simon, I have something to say to thee. And he saith, Master, say on. And then he goes into this story. A certain creditor had owed 500 pence and another 50. Neither one could pay, and then he says he forgave both of them. Right? And then he asked him, tell me therefore, which of them would love him most? Simon, again, Simon, answered and said, I suppose that he whom he forgave most. And he said unto him, thou hast rightly judged. And then he turned to the woman and he said, Simon, seest this woman? I entered into thine house. Thou gavest me no water for my feet, but she hath washed my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. This is the same woman. All four Gospels have it in there. There's a reason. I'm going to come to that. He gave me kisses. So you see. And it says, this woman hath anointed my feet with ointment. So again, it's the same woman. Wherefore, I say unto thee, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, the same loveth little. And he saith unto him, thy sins be to her rather, thy sins be forgiven. Now look, and they that sat at meat, in other words, the guys sitting around eating, they were like, who's this to forgive sins also? So that kind of shocked them. And then he tells her, he said to the woman, thy faith hath saved thee, go in peace. So he's dismissed her. He said, you can go. But wait. If we go over to John, we see, the way I picture it is, when he dismissed her, she starts to leave, and then they stop her. Then saith one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, look at that.